Welcome to the Superconscious Success Podcast, where Jen and her Superconscious Success family co-hosts bring you valuable content each and every week on topics relating to manifestation, spirituality, and most of all, using your superconscious to manifest success in all areas of your life. Now on to today's episode.
Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Just before we get into the interview, this is just a brief message. This is actually a recording of the 2021 Superconscious Success Summit interviews. If you do want to check out the introductory for all of the guests, then you can go across to our Superconscious Success YouTube channel where you'll be able to find all the introductions. These particular podcast interviews will be the interview only. Okay, thank you. Now let's get on to the interview. Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Welcome back to another incredible interview where we're going to be talking to Crystal Davis. If you have not yet seen Crystal's introductory video, head across to the Superconscious Success YouTube channel where you'll be able to learn a little more about her and how she came to now be talking about purpose, power, and prosperity, as well as her 3 keys and her 7 axes of self-mastery. So we have a lot to cover today, so we are going to be getting straight into it. But first off, Crystal, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for this opportunity.
And thank you so much for being here and for sharing your knowledge and for sharing your experience in regards to discovering our purpose and our power and our prosperity. So I'm going to ask, can we first start off by sharing what your 3 keys are? So we talk about the 3 keys to unlocking the power of your purpose. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we all hear when we first start our spiritual journeys, we always hear that our thoughts create our reality. Mm-hmm. And then if you're anything like me, you have this vision. And what my mentor early on said, it's like you have the blueprints there, the house is designed, it's all there, but there's no electricity.
Yeah.
I like what you want, and you get so frustrated and angry, and all kinds of different things come up because you can think until till the cows come home, but what you want's not showing up, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really learning what's in the deeper unconscious or subconscious, right? I mean, I know we all know that we hear these words, but it's a whole different, right? The experience of it, that's the whole key. Because, and actually the 3 keys, what I call it is, I love this analogy. I use the word ebb, and it stands for experiences, beliefs, and behaviors.
Okay.
When we're in alignment, we ebb and we flow. Mm-hmm. Right? Life is easy and things just ebb and they flow. When our experiences, our beliefs, and behaviors are in alignment, we know what we want. The experiences make sense. But I want to actually take that a little deeper.
Right.
Because all of us have experiences that don't feel so good. Mm-hmm. And what happens, and the reason, right, that we have this unconscious or these, well, I call them unconscious needs that are down in the subconscious. The reason that happens is, right, we look at that experience and say, we put the blinders on and we said, I don't want to look at that. Yeah. And we completely bury it. When what we're really talking today with these 3 keys to purpose, power, and prosperity is that it's the thing that we're not willing to look at that actually has the gift.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
What I call discovering your unique brilliance, and actually is your, the key to creating your unique brilliance blueprint so that you can stand out and shine and be seen by your ideal clients, have more, and then they pay you, then you have more money, and then you create more of the business and the life that you love. But it all comes back to, are you willing to see that experience in a different way? Mm-hmm. And I also, in alignment with those 3 keys, if you think about the stream, there's always going to be in our streams of life, right? The rocks and the boulders and the things that when you're looking at it from, something's wrong, that are going to be scary. Yeah. But when you're in ebb and flow, right, then they're there, but you have a whole new perspective. And this is why I call that the turnaround from pain to pleasure. I have to be able to turn it all around, because until we do that, we're going to be stuck with the same old story. And while the water is flowing, we're still going to be completely feeling like we're stuck and lost and unable to create what we want.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're thinking, it matters how you feel. And so we have to learn to really be able to look at those experiences, beliefs, and behaviors, right?
Yeah,
because
it's about changing your perspective on a situation and changing the story that we've been telling ourselves for so many years. Because
yeah.
as you just said, sometimes these stories that we've been telling ourselves, if you actually dig deep and you change the way that you perceive the situation, then there's often some magic in there. And there's a lesson in there that we're supposed to have learned throughout the experience, that can actually help us to figure out what our purpose is and what our mission is. The amount of people that I've spoken to that have had, either near-death experiences or they've had, traumatic experiences. I have one of the days on this summit is actually on people that have been dealing with adversity. And so the way they perceive the situation that happened will determine exactly what purpose they are following in their life. And these people are absolutely incredible because they've changed their story and they've used that story to be able to inspire others and to motivate others. And instead of playing the victim role, which our ego tends to like to move us towards, start to connect with source and connect with your subconscious, and you'll start to discover what your power really is. So I love that. I love your ebb and flow, because we've all heard that what do you call it? I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, I like that. So there are what did you say? E is experiences, beliefs, and behaviors.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So once you've discovered those unlimited beliefs, because obviously that's part of what you do, is to help people to discover what their limited beliefs are and what's actually lurking deep in their subconscious and their unconscious. So what would you say is the first step once you've discovered that?
Well, actually, I would say that what you've discovered is that not the limiting belief, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you've discovered is
your potential.
What you're doing isn't working, right? Mm-hmm. If I go back to my story, my personal path is that, again, I had the vision. It was all mapped out. I know. I've always known what I wanted. It was not hard for me to do the visioning piece of it, right? But actually manifesting it, right? There's just this big old stop sign, this roadblock that just wasn't happening. And so the first step is the creation of that vision.
Yeah.
Now, I want to actually qualify that, because again, I had the vision within probably 6 to 8 months of starting my business, but it wasn't working. So the vision that we need to really create in that first step is what I call an authentically inspired vision. Mm-hmm. And this is where human design comes in. I use it with my clients to actually give them a roadmap. And here's the trick, right? Because the human design system is basically, it's a birth chart. You get your birth chart from, you're born into these attributes and in this design, in this way that you're here to be. However, as a child, that part of us, right, didn't feel seen, heard, and understood, even though you have the roadmap. But of course, who had that roadmap when you were born, right? Our parents didn't have it. We didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
But having that, at least to begin the process of seeing what's authentic for you. Now, there's more. We're going to get deeper into that as we go through today's talk. But the very first piece is endeavor to say, okay, what's real and authentic for you? Mm-hmm. That actually, and I always use the analogy, it's like you begin to open the door, the light begins to stream in. And I have a great analogy that I use there, which I call the ice cube effect. And it's actually from the movie, if you've anybody, Jennifer, anybody listening, if you've seen the cartoon movie or the movie Frozen, where, you know, frozen heart, we need to unfreeze the frozen heart. So I came up with this analogy called the ice cube effect that says basically, you know, we all have these frozen places inside of us, where what an authentically inspired vision does is it's meant to melt those places within inside of us. So really the first step is to create that authentically inspired vision. Again, it's really just the first step, because can you completely see? No. But as you begin to pour, it's like, the reason I call it the ice cube effect, it's like taking a bunch of frozen ice cubes out of the freezer, and if you put it in a pitcher and when you're to pour water over it, those ice cubes start to break up and the ice cubes start to pop to the surface.
Yeah.
That's what an authentically inspired vision does for our limiting beliefs and our unconscious needs, is that we pour the water over because we start to say, in fact, the core question, what would I really love to be, do, and have? As we start to answer that, then ice cubes start to pop up. And one of the early ice cubes for me was my story that I'd carried for, you know, over 30, 35, 40 years of my life, which was that I was hidden from birth. That story just kept coming up. It's like, well, why isn't networking working? Why aren't the right ideal clients coming for me? Why can't I to work with me? Why can't I connect with the right people in my business? What is happening when everything's falling apart?
Yeah.
Well, that story popped up, and it started to show me what I really believed, that I believed that I wasn't worthy. Well, basically, in a nutshell, that story is that my parents didn't tell anybody that they were pregnant for me, and they had me at home, and my dad delivered me. So not good enough to celebrate, not important enough to take to the hospital, right? All this stuff in the unconscious that, until I began to go for my big vision and really look to bring my vision to fruition, then up comes the ice cube, right? To say, here, look at this. Because here's an experience in your life that's creating a behavior, that has a belief within you, that's creating a behavior that you're showing up, right? I'm showing up feeling hidden. Didn't matter how many networking events I attended, what I said, what I did, that kept coming up from from beneath the surface to just sabotage me time and time again.
Right. And so once you've discovered what the messages from the inner child is telling you, because we know that, you know, like attracts like, and so you would be going to these networking meetings not feeling worthy, not feeling like you've got something to contribute, feeling hidden. So obviously people are not going to be attracted to the same vibrations. So once you've discovered that, you do something called inner child healing. What is that all about?
Yeah. So what's really important here, and this is actually good, I'm glad we came to this point. Great question. Because, right, the story that we often live our lives from is, well, mom and dad never loved me, I'm not important. You know, all of those stories, right? And, you know, this is evolutionary or revolutionary conversation we're having here, because the inner child piece, and there's all this disconnect. We're not really sure. We know we feel this way, but inner child, what? Right. And so what the inner childing piece is that, remember, we never had a roadmap. When we were born, we never had a roadmap. We didn't know. We just looked outside of ourselves to other people and said, okay, what does mom and dad want? What does the teacher want? One of my favorite stories is an analogy of, like, we're born, we feel like we're these castles, right? We're playing in all the different rooms, we're just having fun, we're exploring. And that's probably around the age of 2. You know, we're just exploring, we're discovering. But then we bump up against the beliefs of other people, but that's all we know, was there's no roadmap. We're just trying to figure it all out, you know, hit and miss. And they start to tell us their beliefs and their stories. And, you know, we begin to start thinking that, well, this room in the castle is not good enough, so I'm going to close it down. I'm going to close this down, this down, this down. And then ultimately we begin to believe that we're a 2-bedroom fixer-upper. We're no longer the castle. And so the inner child process, the reason it's so important, and here's the connection, is that when we go back and we say, okay, what's our authentically inspired vision? Then we begin to go back and look at the roadmap and say, what is your purpose and what's your path?
Yeah.
Right. And so the story that happened when I was born, and that my parents didn't value me, they didn't love me, that was meant to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Because this piece, in fact, hidden from birth, is the truth for all of us. It's not just my story, it's everybody's story.
Yeah.
Because here's the point, right? Because we don't have the roadmap and we don't know what makes us uniquely brilliant, and then we start to judge and say, okay, I'm going to cut these things off and I'm not going to go there. What's hidden and what the inner child's really doing, well, on the front end, when we're children, it's not safe to be. So we close it down and we get trapped inside of ourselves. We feel that's where, like, the alone and isolated, and it comes up that way, and it comes, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, and I don't feel understood. And what the inner child healing work does is say, well, when the emotional, so it always starts with an emotional trigger.
Yeah.
Again, so when I was having those knockdown, drag out fights where I just had the vision, it wasn't manifesting, it was always that emotional trigger came up first.
Yeah.
Okay? And the ice cube popped up. I was angry. I go to the network event angry, leaving it, bawling my eyes out, even going back to my 6-figure government job, bawling my eyes out, not knowing why. But here's the thing, the inner child is such a gift, because the very first thing it's saying is, there's a wound, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I need you to see, hear, and understand that hurt. So the very first thing we do is allow that inner child to feel whatever they want to feel. And it, anger, rage, sadness, disgust, shame, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and here's the piece that is truly revolutionary and that completely brings human design and inner child healing together, so that you can find your discover your unique brilliance, be, and for most of us, that divine messenger, and truly be that servant that we're here to be, to serve our tribes.
Yeah.
Is the feeling that the inner child is having. At the same time, we are the observer, and that's where spirit comes in.
Yeah.
We still need to allow that inner child to feel whatever they feel, not judge it.
Yeah.
Be in that neutral observer while they feel. And what a beautiful thing that happens is we're I love the expression of shining the light of the consciousness upon what happened. And simply, and actually another piece of this key is to realize that the inner child's experience has been, I don't feel safe with you.
Yeah.
You told me there's something wrong with me. You've lived your life with the experiences, beliefs, and behaviors as if I'm not good enough, I'm not important, I'm not lovable. And so it's like, and I like to use an example, just to step away from it for a minute, of an animal. If you imagine an animal, in fact, this happened to me a few years ago. I went to this home, and there was an animal that was in a cage, and I could tell the animal was skittish. If you've ever met a cat or a dog or any type of animal that just steps back, and I recognized that, and I just left my hand there and allowed the cat to come toward me. And after a few minutes, it did.
Yeah.
It warmed up. But that's just beginning to understand what the inner child's feeling, because the truth is, sometimes it like with my story, 10 years after starting my business, all these pieces of helping the inner child feel safe, it's you and you, it's me and me, right? And actually just being patient and loving and kind as they're feeling. Let's say they're enraged, they're anger, you're observing it, but you realize this is all happening within you. And this is where a good coach comes in, and somebody that is, I call myself an awakened visionary, because my work is to help each person, each soul, do the work, this process, and to feel, let the inner child feel, observe, and then help that inner child feel safe. And so that we then begin to listen to, what does the inner child really want?
Yeah.
And
And the thing is, with if we were to ignore the inner child, which is what we do so frequently, and therefore our belief systems remain the same, because we learn the beliefs from our parents, our teachers, those people that are around us as we grow up. So you being able to go in and actually heal that inner child, and I often say to my kids, having two teenagers, and I say it's important that you feel those feelings. It's not about suppressing the feelings. Feel those feelings and move through them. And so I think it's great that you actually help people with that healing of the inner child, to be able to move forward and to be able to actually start to put that vision into practice.
yeah, well, and the final piece that really brings it, rubber meeting the road, because what we're doing is changing the experiences, beliefs, and behaviors to a new set of behaviors ultimately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so after we allow them to feel, and we observe that, and then they feel safe with us, a beautiful thing happens. The gift is just there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where the roadmap comes back, right?
Mm-hmm.
An aspect, it's always, always, always an aspect of your human design seeking expression.
Yeah.
So what was closed becomes expressed, and into the consciousness, into awareness, and then what was appeared like a temper tantrum from the inner child is actually the part of you that is going to be brilliant, is brilliant.
Yeah.
The gift is profound, and just, allows you to truly get out of the stuck places and into a place of ease and grace, right? Then we begin to really ebb and flow.
Yeah, and it does allow you to really look at things differently, and look at all those emotions differently, that we're feeling. So now that we've talked about that, can we go into your 7 axes of self-mastery? And we're going to go a little bit into each of them. So we're going to start off with the life purpose axis. What is that all about?
Right. So if you look at the human design birth chart, there's a lot of detail. I just told somebody just told me the other day that it looked like rocket science, or there's a lot going on. And what I've done is actually I've simplified human design, and actually human design is just one piece of my system, by the way. It's a very important piece, the roadmap piece, but I actually put it into what I call Unique Brilliance Blueprint.
Yes.
And these 7 axes of self-mastery is the cornerstone of the Unique Brilliance Blueprint. And I personalize it for each one of my clients.
Yes.
So the life purpose axis, what it does is it brings to you certain gates within your human design. And so when you look at those particular gates, what you realize is your life purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the inner child, so what we want to look at is both sides of this, right? Oh, here we go. So the behavior of an unconscious need, that the inner child is still feeling that negative emotion, well, again, anger, frustration, whatever it may be. And in the life purpose axis, the way that shows up is in the unconscious need to be special.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through all 7 of these axes, plus the unconscious need.
Yeah.
And what we want to look at, in fact, I've got an ebook. If you go to my offer and sign up, I wrote a whole ebook about this. And because what happens is, if you've ever been in a conversation that you're like, well, why did I say that?
Yeah.
Why do I need this person to know that I'm special?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the unconscious need. That's the inner child. It is the way that it just pops up. And this actually reminds me of Debbie Ford. Never heard of her? She's phenomenal spiritual teacher. And her analogy of, it's like having, thousands of beach balls, and you're in the pool trying to hold them down.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm special, but boy, I have this need to be special. So when I'm talking to Jennifer, I'm going to tell her about all the ways I'm special.
Okay, yep.
Right? That's how you know. But the gift is the life purpose.
Right.
That person, when you, and it can be me, you, anyone, when you observe that, whether it's in yourself or somebody else, if you think they need to be special, have a need to be special, well, it's because they have those human design aspects are saying, I want to express my purpose in the world. Right. But I don't feel safe to. I feel buried. I feel, the inner child's expressing rather than the life purpose.
Fantastic.
So that's the first one. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so then we go from life purpose, and the second one we're going to talk about is leadership. So how does leadership work?
Right. So with the leadership axis, it is the unconscious need to be different.
Okay.
Yeah. So absolutely, I believe everyone's a leader.
Yes.
And so when you have people, well, actually, this one's a little interesting, and I actually love the analogy of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Where he wants to be different. We all want to be different.
Yeah.
But then we put the black nose on and we try to cover what makes us different, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the inner child is saying, no, I can't be different because I don't feel safe to be different. Mm-hmm. But at the same time is over here saying, I'm angry because you don't see that I'm different.
Okay.
See? It's both. It's a catch 22 between those two. And so when we truly discover through our human designs and our unique brilliance blueprints what makes us different, and we finally help that inner child to feel safe to be different, then again you step into your leadership role.
Excellent. And number 3 we have is the relationship axis.
Yeah, and so the relationship axis, this one, if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill, clearly relationship axis is very deep. Now, the way it shows up, the unconscious need is the need to be liked and the fear of criticism. And that's why I say that one is really deep, because we come up all kinds of reasons as to why we fear speaking our message and being who we are, right? They won't like me, and I fear what they're going to say. Well, guess what? Those people, of course, are not your ideal people.
Yeah.
But let us not forget, though, that it's the inner child healing and helping the inner child to feel safe to express who they are that turns that around, that it's really not about all the people. But here's the problem with marketing. It really dilutes our message when we have these unconscious needs.
Yeah.
This particular one really dilutes it because we're trying to be everything to everyone. Can't get there from there, right?
No, exactly. And it's interesting because one of the other interviews that we've got on the summit is actually on imposter syndrome, and that's the need to feel like it's the inability to recognize your value as a person. And so I think this also comes down to the inner child and not healing and worrying about what everybody else is thinking about you and criticizing about you. And so that's a really, really interesting one. What about the balance of being and doing axis? What's that about?
Okay, so this one is really at the core of why the inner child wants to hide.
Yeah.
The balance of being and doing, right? We want to, in fact, being comes before doing.
Yeah.
We've in society kind of had that backwards for a long time, for eons. But in order to reach that balance, well, let me say that the unconscious need is the unconscious need to be busy. Okay?
Yeah.
Which keeps us from being balanced. What is the need to be busy? Well, it's a distraction, right? What's it distracting you from? It's distracting you from feeling what you feel.
And that's why so many people cover it up and they just keep busy all the time because then they don't have to think about how they're actually feeling.
Yeah, and so if you go back to earlier, if you can re-listen to this and go back to the earlier in the talk when we talked about the importance of allowing the inner child to feel his or her emotions.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to have a balance in your life because you're running around being busy, avoiding the emotion that is the key to you finding and discovering what you're here to, who you're here to be, what you're here to do, and what you're here to have.
Yeah. So
You
you're
can't
actually
unlock those
covering
doors.
up. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
actually covering up that gift.
Oh,
Then we move into the daily service axis.
yeah. And these are actually, if you notice, these are building, right?
Yep.
I think it's ordered in a particular way for a reason. Daily service, then, right? You know what your life purpose is. You have a sense of that you're a leader. You have better empowering relationships. You're more balanced. And now being in daily service,
Yeah.
right? Just focused on to really be free and to create the business and life you love. Then you want to be in service to your ideal and perfect clients.
Yeah.
Well, the unconscious need for this one is I have an unconscious need to be right or a need to be perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's happening when you're talking to somebody and you're in your head wondering, they think I'm wrong, or I need to be perfect, and you're just completely tense and not able to really receive. Certainly for us coaches, you're not a very good coach when you're in your head or trying to be perfect and you're not even listening to what the other person's saying.
Yeah. And it's really important to recognize that that you don't need to be perfect. It's it's about coming out and providing your value. And I was talking to one of my guests about the imposter syndrome, and it's interesting how closely related these can be, because we often go out there and we feel like we have to be perfect before we put anything out into the world, and it's not needed.
Well, the gift, this one's really special because the gift, and the reason we actually, the inner child has this need to be right, need to be perfect, is that it's about allowing your intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the knowledge, the wisdom, right, comes through allowing the divine, what I call divine downloads.
Yes.
Right. And so it's actually a gift to have this desire to be perfect, because it's just a part of you that's saying, well, I know that I'm connected to all there is.
Yeah.
Again, the evolution of the inner child work is to help the inner child realize that they are seen, heard, and understood by you, right? First, and then as it quiets, then the intuition will be the gift that it needs to be to allow you to receive, right? Yeah. And so being in daily service is all about just really allowing yourself to do there. And so again, that's a deeper one.
Yeah.
Because it's really in that subconscious taking over. I know for me it was a huge one for so long.
Yeah. And then once you move from the daily service, we head into the transformation axis. And so that's about the need for time and for money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or the simple way of saying it is the need to have it all.
Yeah.
Or the desire to have it all, right? And in fact, that's actually the transformation, right? You can have it all, but the difference is, right, time and money is outside of you.
Yeah.
We feel like, well, if I only had more time, if I only have more money. When the transformation, again, this is where you can tell this is at a deep, deep level, because the transformation is that when you know yourself, love yourself, acknowledge yourself, right? Yeah. No longer running from those emotions and simply allowing yourself, then time and money is effortless. It just comes.
Yeah. It does. When you're in alignment with source and with the universe, then and you're in the flow, and this is what we're talking about with the ebb and the flow, and you're in the flow, then it just comes naturally. And it is all about your inner child connecting with source and with your higher powers. So transformation's a very interesting one. And then we go into communication, and this is possibly one of the most important ones. So what's the communication access all about?
Yeah, when I do a reading for my clients through their initial readings through their personalized Unique Brilliance Blueprint, I always start with communication and I end with communication.
Yeah.
And the reason is you start because begin with the end in mind, right? What do you want to, I have a course called Finding Your Divine Message. And so it's really one of my passions is helping my clients define their divine message to be, really Unique Brilliance Blueprint, bringing these 7 axes of self-mastery together so that communication access, it really is, it's the sum of everything, because the unconscious need is I feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. Right? Think about that just receive that just for a minute and just realize, oh, if there is a part of, if I feel, let's start it this way, if I feel unseen, unheard, and misunderstood, oh, they can't, right? Mom and dad, the other people, no one else can see, hear, and understand you. You are the one that is going to embrace what your inner child's feeling, be that neutral observer, and listen to them so that they finally, for many of us, right? I know for myself, it was well over 4 decades of living my life where I don't know what I can't understand what's going on inside of me. In fact, I want to add this one piece here that, the mind really gets that bad rep. And here's why. We think, well, if the mind would just get out of the way, well, the mind. All 7 of these 7 axes of self-mastery meet in the mind.
Yeah.
And is communicated down to the throat. Both the mind and the throat are where the rubber meets the road.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The mind in particular is receiving, desires and information and anger and all kinds of, it's getting
different messages.
Messages from all of these different aspects of you. Right. So no wonder we're confused and we're unclear and we're alone and isolated and unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. And then we blame the mind as if, well, the mind did it or somebody else did it. Well, it's just, I have a great analogy. It's like you have a ball of urine, it's got all these knots in it. I mean, we have to take it one piece at a time and begin to unwind it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really
that's where meditation comes in so handy, because it just allows you to quiet and to actually be able to listen to the messages that is coming from not only your higher self, but also your inner being. So that's fantastic. That is a lot of information for people out there. You say that you've got a free ebook, which we have got in the playbook. We have included all of that information in the playbook. So head across to your playbook, check it out. And Crystal's, she's got this amazing ebook that she's created, as well as some other great discounts and all sorts of stuff. So thank you so much for being with us today, Crystal. Is there any final words that you would like to offer for our listeners today? Trust yourself. That was one of the greatest gifts I ever received from one of my mentors, is trust yourself, right? Yeah. It's all about you. You do have purpose, you do have power, and you are absolutely going to be, or you are already prosperous, right? And that wherever you are on your purpose and your path, it's all divinely perfect, right? And so, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Crystal. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot.